Well, welcome back to another coffee and a chat, and I got a pretty good cup of coffee here. I need it. I always think I need coffee. I don't know. That little doodads all over my table here. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So I just wanted to kind of get up on here. I don't know. Sometimes instead of coffee and a chat, this should probably just be called Life with Angie. But sometimes we go through things in life and we figure out that we've come up short, that we haven't done maybe what we should have done, that we failed. And for the most part, I don't think we like to admit when we failed. We like to tell people all the good stuff we do and how that all goes, and every time we get it right. And let me see if I can do something with this. Is that too much? Okay, that feels better. Anyway, I just, I think that it's important to be able to share safely with each other when we maybe haven't got something right and when we have maybe failed. And why I think that is because I think that we can learn from each other and encourage each other. It probably keeps us humble. So today I've got some regrets. Some things that I should have done this last year, and I didn't. I kind of put them off because there were so many other things, and now I regret it. So I just want to kind of share this with you, and it's also because I get to tell you in sharing this about a wonderful woman that God brought into my life years ago who was there for me, and I get to share a little bit. Now, I might get a little emotional. I'm trying not to. I already did a bunch of crying. But on the day that I'm filming this, it happens to be my birthday. And I got a letter from back home, because it's Christmas time. And I've got several friends from back home that, they send out their Christmas letter and you find out everything that's going on. And so this particular friend, her mother was one of my mother's closest friends. And she was one of my adopted moms. And so I always, because, she's up there in her 90s now. And I just never knew. So I'm always, when I get my letter, I'm like holding my breath to see how she's doing and stuff. Because I don't hear stuff for the most part during the year. I kind of, at the end of the year, I get these letters and I find out what's going on and how things have gone. And so I got the letter and, and in there, yeah, mom's doing good and everything. So, I was like, whew, good. But then she had a post note for Marvin and I and, and some personal things because it's her standard letter that she sends out. And so she had written some personal things on the back of the letter. And one of the things that she put was that this other woman who was friends with my mom and her mom and everything, and who was also another one of my adopted moms, because, I've always, I guess, been that person. It took a lot of women to try and keep me doing okay. I don't know. But anyway, Joan, my mama Joan, she passed away a couple of months ago. And so that was unexpected to me. She's younger than, she's even younger than my mom, and she's younger than this gal's mom, and I hadn't expected it. So I want to tell you a little bit about Joan first, because this woman, God brought into my life when I was going through my divorce. And she went to that little church that I told you about in a couple of videos ago, or whenever it was, the little country church where it was family. And we were very involved in each other's lives. And it wasn't just Sunday morning, but we interacted with each other during the week, and we helped each other when we needed help. And it was a real family. And I miss that. Oh, I miss that. That's the kind of church that I've only been in a few like that, but they've been precious to me. So anyway, Mama Joan was a very outgoing woman. I mean, she just was the kind of like, hey, we're going to be friends. She just, oh my word, she was something else. And she wasn't real quiet. She could be very loud at times, especially if it was going to embarrass you, which I'll probably tell you a little story on that one. But anyway, I got to know Joan, and I fell in love with this woman, with her heart for the Lord. And so as I got to know her, and she began to share her story, because that's part of being family, is we shared our stories with each other. We knew each other. We knew the things we went through in life and were going through, and it was safe to share. And so she had gone through a divorce years ago to a man that, the only man she was ever married to. She loved him very much, and it was it took her by surprise and was an extreme heartbreak for her. Now, she talked about how she felt lonely, going through that, and like no man was ever going to want her or love her, and there's a lot of that. As she would share it with me, it's like I totally got it, because I was, I loved my husband. He wasn't very nice to me most of the time, but I did love him very much. And I kept believing that things could get better. I kept believing that, that it didn't have to be the way it was, and that he could surrender all the way to God, not just talk like he was and do some of the things he did, but that there could be a real legitimate thing there, and that he could be an amazing man. I could see that in my husband, but when everything was said and done, that's not what he wanted. And so that's not what happened. Well, her husband left her. My husband left me. And so there were a lot of things that I could connect with her on. And I would sit and just be like, so how did you handle this? Because I knew that feeling of rejection and like, that there was no hope for me. Nobody was going to want. I mean, divorce, that dying of, especially when you've been married for so many years, that dying of that relationship can really work on you. I don't know how it is for guys, but I know how it was for me and several other women that I've known when we've talked about it, and how it just can really destroy your very heart and your any self-esteem you might have had. And I don't care. I mean, I've seen beautiful women that were abandoned by their husbands, and how they just felt homely and no good. And and you'd look at them like, oh my word, you're so gorgeous and you're so nice and sweet, and you're trying to figure out why in the world the guy ever left. But it would destroy their hearts in that way. And there's a grieving, is what I've come to feel that it is, a grieving, because it's a death. And so I would ask her how she handled that, and she'd be like, well, not very good at first, but in time, she realized she wasn't ever going to remarry or date or anything like that. And so she decided to be married to God and let him be her husband, which was something God already was dealing with me on. And I had already started writing a book about it. And so I found that very interesting. And so, and she just, she said, it took time, but she eventually knew that there was nothing that any man could give her that God wasn't better at giving. He didn't give her better, and that he really was all she needed. And her heart was content with him, and oh, how she loved him. And so I just thoroughly enjoyed her, and we would talk about things. And there were times when I just needed a little nudging in the right direction. I needed some encouragement or whatever. And because she had walked a similar road ahead of me, and God had done so much for her, she was one of the greatest assets that I had in my life at that time to go to be able to help me, try and stay. Because I'm telling you, it can make you crazy. And to just kind of rope you back to sanity and reality and to God, and know that, yes, it is going to be okay. So I found a lot of hope and encouragement through this woman. Now, as when Marvin came into my life, she, along with my mom and their other friend, I don't know. It's like other people had it figured out, I think, before even maybe Marvin and I did, that this was a God thing and that we were going to end up getting married. And even though it was, we lived 3,000 miles apart, and there was so many things that, you would think, how could you even make it work? But yet it worked. And we talked. I mean, from the day Marvin and I met, we met on the phone through some of our grandchildren that we had in common. But we didn't know each other. And from that day that we first met, Marvin and I have talked every single day since then. I mean, it started right away. He was like, can I call you again tomorrow? Sure, why not? Whatever. Knock yourself out. I don't care. I wasn't looking for anybody at that point. I was going the Mama Joan route, and I was just going to be married to God. But I needed a godly earthly husband to help bring healing to me. I just didn't know it. And Marvin was the one God chose to do that. And I am so thankful, because Marvin is the husband of my joy and my delight. And just having a godly husband that's, that we're like-minded and equally yoked. I mean, it's amazing. And, anyway, so now when it was coming up time, because when we got engaged, and we were engaged for a year, because I wanted to make sure. I didn't want to end up back in another bad situation. And I didn't want Marvin to not be sure. So we were engaged for a year, and we knew that at any point we had an out, that this just isn't going to work. And we didn't even have to explain, but we wanted to make sure this was God. And that he was at the center of this, because we didn't need any more trouble in life. We'd already had enough of that. And so as I went through that, now when it was getting close to the time for our wedding, I needed to put my home up for sale, and I needed to move my stuff out and bring it here. So my dad and I had drove my stuff out, and I needed a place to stay. My mom and dad, I could sleep on their living room floor, but Joan, she's like, oh no, she wasn't going to have that. In fact, she and this other friend, they were fighting over who I was going to live with. But I knew when Joan said, come stay with me for a while, I knew that's what I need to do, because I'm learning from this woman. And so I went and stayed with her. I tried to pay her rent. She wouldn't take rent from me, and she didn't have much. And so then I started doing things like buying groceries or whatever I could to try and help make things better for her. But she just wanted, she goes, I'm just so happy to have you here. Well, in that time I stayed with her, and, which was, I don't remember how long. It wasn't, maybe a month or two, maybe. But I know that after Marvin and I got married, I still had to keep flying out there for my parents for a couple of years till they moved out here. And in that time, she was always like, hey, I got your room ready. And so most of the time I did go and stay with Joan. And then eventually she ended up selling her home and moving in with her one son and his family. And she's got 3 sons that she loves. Oh, she loved her boys. They were her world. And her dogs. She even had a photo album that she would go through all the dogs she'd ever had. There was just so much about her that was just so good for me. We were very much alike but I can remember one day I had come home, and I had got some groceries, and so I was she had a deep freezer in the garage, and so I was putting stuff in the deep freezer before I went into the house. And when I went in, she was hard of hearing, so she didn't even know I was there. And I could see her sitting in the living room in her chair. And she was just talking to the Lord and praising him, and the glow and the smile on her face. And I was like, oh my word, this woman loves Jesus the way I want to love Jesus. And, and I tried to be really quiet. So I wouldn't startle her, but pretty soon she was done, and she opened her eyes, and it was like, oh, you're home. And I'm like, yeah. And the one thing was it Diet Coke, I think, or Cherry Coke? I think that's what it was. I can't remember now. But she had that was her addiction. And so, yeah, so if you really wanted to be on her good side, you'd bring her a case of that, and she'd get excited, and as she'd sit and pop a top, going, I really got to cut back on these things, but they're so good. And I'm like, yeah, I get it with the coffee, so I'm not going to fault you. I wasn't into the soda, but So anyway, we would sit, we would talk, and she would talk about how God was her husband and how he met her needs. And even if she'd wake up afraid in the night, she could cry out to him, and he'd just settle her spirit right down, and she'd be okay. And I cherish the investment that she made in to me. I was in my 50s. I was no young girl, but I was a mess. And I praise God for her. That I believe that Joan coming into my life was as ordained by God as Marvin becoming my husband. You know, there are different people that God has placed in my life, and I believe it is God ordained, and she was one of them. And so, anyway, now I said earlier, she wasn't always quiet. She could be very loud, especially if it was going to embarrass you. So when it was coming up time for Marvin and I to get married, I was really kind of freaked out about the wedding night, okay? And actually Marvin was too. Yeah, I mean, I'd been married for 36 years to one man, and now, you know, and I was very nervous about it, okay? And I talked to my mom about it some, and my mom had some great things to say that helped put me at ease, you know, and I had come home at one point, and this was like Marvin was already in town, and it was a couple days before our wedding, and I'd come home from talking to my mom, and I'd been talking to her about that, and so she's like, well, what'd your mom have to say? And so I was telling her, and she goes, oh, that's really good advice, you know. She goes, now, Marvin and I got married on Saturday at the church, and we were flying out on Monday or Tuesday to fly home to Delaware. And so we didn't like go anywhere for a honeymoon or anything. My house hadn't sold yet. We just went back there. And after driving around for a couple hours, killing time because we were both so scared to go to the house. Yeah. Anyway, so Joan had said, because she goes, well, you guys going to come to church the next morning after you're married? I go, oh, yeah, we plan to, you know, that's very important to us. We'll be at church Sunday morning. She goes, well, I'm just going to, you know, ask you how it was. And I'm like, don't you dare. And so she kept teasing me about this, that, you know what's going to happen when you show up Sunday? And I'm like, you better not. Well, Sunday morning, Marvin and I showed up at church, and there was already quite a few people there, and they were playing some music and stuff. And Joan, she was waiting for me. The minute she saw us walk in, she turned around and really loud goes, well, how was it? And I just thought I was going to die. I'm like, everything's fine. Hush. And she goes, no, you're all worried. I just want to know how it went. So that was my mama, Joan. And she would do things like that all the time. She just cracked me up. So anyway, now after Marvin and I came back here, and like I said, every couple of months or so I was flying out there, and sometimes I'd be out there for a couple of months, then fly back here, be here for a couple of months, fly back there. I was back and forth trying to take care of everything, still get my house sold, all that. My house, it was a trailer in a trailer park. Anyway, to get all that sold and taken care of, and I had some dear friends that were helping me do that, and I couldn't have done it without them. And so, anyway, going through everything, and and I'd always go see Joan. Even if I stayed at my mom and dad's, I'd still go see her. Even when she moved in with her son, I'd drive, up that steep driveway to go up there to see her, and always make sure she was doing okay and everything was good. Well, I would call her on Mother's Day. I would call her on her birthday. I would call her for any holidays. I would call her in between. And as time went, and then Mom and Dad moved here, And I got so busy with that I didn't call as often anymore. But I still would call her a couple times a year, and I knew, she would tell me about how, she had problems with her balance and stuff. She had difficulty walking. She had difficulty driving. She wouldn't admit, well, no, sometimes she'd admit it. She was scary. If we had to go somewhere, I'd be like, I'll drive. Loved her to death, but that woman should not. She's the little old lady that'll scare you on the freeway. But anyway, I know that those calls started being less and less. I was more and more involved with my life here and the things I was trying to do, and sometimes it would get missed. Well, here's my big regret. And this is something that I hope that you'll get this part, okay? Because I've seen people do this before, and I'm always like, I don't want to be that person. Well, this time, I'm that person. So this year has been a very strange year for Marvin and I. We've had a lot of different things going on that have kept us really, really busy, overly tired. It's been a very challenging year. So her birthday came in March, and I missed it. And Mother's Day came in May, and I missed it. And a few other times when I just felt like I need to pick up the phone and call her, and it just was so much going on, and I'm like, this isn't a good day. I got to call her a different day. And just yesterday or the day before, as I'm going through my prayer journal and I'm praying for her, I'm like, man, I have got to make this a priority and give her a call. And then today I get the letter. She actually died October 5th. She's been gone, and I didn't know it. And even though, trust me, every time I saw Joan, I always made sure she knew how much I appreciated her and how grateful I was for her opening her heart and her life and her home to me, for taking me in like a stray off the road, for all the investment that she made into my life and sharing with me and talking to me and encouraging me and sharing, reading scriptures together and praying together. And I loved my time staying with her. And I always made sure she knew that. But I want to tell her one more time, and I can't. And so today I was thinking, okay, get the tears out so that you can go make a video about her. Because there's other people, that it's like, oh, I'll call them later. And later may be too late. So don't put it off. When you have that thought, I should call somebody, call them. And if you haven't talked to a family member in a while, especially like a parent or somebody that's getting older, call them. That's one thing. I talk to my mom and dad every day, even when I was 3,000 miles apart. Every day at 3 o'clock my time, which was noon their time, we would be at our phones, and I would call them, and we would talk, maybe for a half hour, maybe an hour, whatever they wanted to talk, and they would catch me up with everything that was going on. I'd catch them up with what was going on in my life. So there were no regrets there. But today I'm sitting here with regrets. And I'm going to try and get hold of at least the one son. I think I know how to get hold of him, because I want her boys, if they want to see this video, because I can't thank her one more time. But I can thank her boys for sharing their mom with me, and just maybe spark a little something there, going, yep, that was Mom. She was something else. Now I know where she is. I have no upset about that whatsoever. But when you're the guy that's still left behind, still waiting, that's hard. The other thing today I was telling Marvin is, one of the hard things about getting old that I didn't realize until it started happening to me is those people that are older than you, your parents, grandparents, whoever, the ones that invested in you growing up, the ones that even as an adult you could go to and get that wise advice or whatever because they've already been there. Well, they start disappearing really fast. And pretty soon you're the next generation to go. You're the old person. And I am running out of that older generation of godly women, especially, that I can go to and still say, hey, I need some advice. I need some help. And because they're not lasting. So I made a call or two today to some other people because I don't want it to be too late to just tell them I love them one more time. So I just want to encourage you. If there's somebody you should be getting hold of, do it. Do it. Don't let there be regrets. And if you still, if you've got parents that are living or grandparents that are living, be in touch with them on a more regular basis. Because one day they're not going to be here. And then you wish you could just one more time have that conversation. Today I was wishing that my mom was alive so I could, go, Mom, Joan passed away, because they were good friends too, and that I could just sit and share that with her. But she's gone. She's been gone for 6 years. So it's hard. It's hard. That's a hard part for me of getting older. So anyway, I just want to share that with you guys, and I hope Joan's boys see this video someday and know that your mom was an amazing woman, which I know you know, but she made a difference in other people's lives that you might not even realize. She had a very valuable ministry in her own way. And yeah, if I could be like somebody, she's one of the people I would like to be like. Great, great respect for her. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go. I've cried enough. I don't want to get going again. I love you guys. You have an awesome day, and pick up the phone and call somebody you love. Let them know. All right. Talk to you later.